Alrighty, so the other day I put this video out about the this incident in Crawford County, Arkansas, where two deputies and one police officer were seen beating the living shit out of a guy that they were placing under arrest. I don't know if you haven't seen that video. I would encourage you to go watch it. I stand behind what I said in that video, and what I did is I kind of explained why police officers might have done something like this, and I explained my thoughts on it. Just to be clear, I said that these guys did not do the right thing. I said that they used excessive force. I said that I do not agree with the amount of force that they used. For some reason, people don't understand English words, and even though I put that disclaimer in that video, I still had people saying in all caps, "You're making excuses for this guy or for these guys." That is blatantly not what I was doing. But regardless of that fact, I made a video on it, and there was a bunch of comments on it. Some of the comments were like multi-tiered questions, and it's not the type of thing that I can sit and type out on my phone. And I don't want to spend that kind of time answering comments, but also the majority of people don't go through and read the replies to all those comments. And if I'm going to spend that much time and effort replying to something, I want people to be able to see it. So I thought that maybe the most appropriate way to do that would be to kind of do a live recording of me answering some of these comments and questions, because one of the things that I try to do with this channel is I want people to understand what is going on. I want people to understand what it is that law enforcement does, why they do these things, and why some of the rules exist around law enforcement. And I think that replying to some of these comments publicly is possibly the best way to do some of that stuff. I didn't really highlight the ones that I wanted to answer, but let's look at them now. And a lot of them kind of it was like the same question over and over again. So I want to look at some of these and talk about them, and we'll kind of go from there. Let's see. The first one I see, Sarah, individual. Okay, see this one. This first one it's hard for me to understand what he's even saying. The officers committed a series of action. I think that's supposed to be series of actions that could have permanently injured an individual who posed minimal risk to the officers who posed. Okay, your question, Justin Baker, has so many typos that I can't read it. Sorry, I'm not off to a good start. I should have prepared. I don't prepare. So this guy, Alien Prepper, he says, so if I beat someone up, I can say, I just had a bad day. So if we pay you more, you won't violate people's rights. This is why police have lost respect of the people. I'm a Republican, by the way. This question, this is dumb. Everything about this question is dumb. I don't have any respect for the person that asked this question, because they're not commanding my respect. Let's start from the beginning. So if I beat someone up, I can say I just had a bad day. Well, here's the situation that happened. The officers went to place this guy under arrest. He spit on him and he swung on them. His actions caused those officers to use force against him. I've already spoken about the level of force, and I mean, flat out, if you spit on a cop and you swing on a cop, you're going to get swung on. That you're going to have some force used against you. I expect every officer who has spit on and swung on to injure somebody in response to that. That's how we're trained. That's what you should expect. You're not going to spit on me and get away with it. That being said, you have to use the proper amount of force to place someone under arrest. We know that there's a line. You don't cross that line. When people ask me, where is that line when I'm talking to regular Joe Schmo on the street, I tell them, look, we're all adults. We know what that line is. Don't cross that line. I'm not going to give you a specific instance. If you spit on me and you swing on me, I'm probably going to hurt you. I just want that to be clear in the very beginning. He says, so if I beat someone up, I can just say I had a bad day. Well, they didn't just beat someone up. The person that they beat up is a person that spit on them and it swung on them. What he's trying to say is that, well, police officers have special rights. They kind of do, and I'll get to that in a moment, but I'll cover that right now. Yeah, you're damn right. Police officers have special rights. Police officers are the only people in our society that can walk up to someone and say, hey, you're under arrest, put cuffs on them, and force them in the backseat of a car and drive them somewhere else. If a regular citizen tries to do that, it's called kidnapping. Police officers are afforded special rights to be able to place people under arrest. It's part of their job. They are also afforded the right to use force against a person to place them under arrest. So yes, if you swing on a cop, you punch a cop, you spit a cop, they are afforded the right to use force against you in return. They can use the same level of force, or often what police officers are trained to do is go one level of force higher. So technically, if you swing a fist at somebody, they can swing a billy club at you. That's how this stuff works. Now, I also want to do this whole, if I beat someone up, I can say I had a bad day. I want to answer you directly about that. If somebody swings on you and you have witnesses, and then you respond by beating the crap out of that person, and I respond as a police officer, and I talk to you, I talk to the person that you beat up, and I talk to the witnesses, you're not going to be charged in that situation. I don't know why people act as if every single person that wins a fight gets arrested and charged by the police. That is not the case. I have responded to probably thousands of fights over my career. At least multiple hundred fights where one person got beat up and I didn't arrest or charge anybody out of it. I had a case, I was just telling somebody, this was an attorney I was talking to the other day. I had a case years ago. It was a couple of roommates and they were fighting over a steak. The one roommate ate the other roommate's steak. So we'll call it suspect. Suspect is the guy who ate the steak. Victim is the one that owned the steak. The victim went to the suspect and said, yo, bro, you ate my steak. And the suspect said, yes, I did eat your steak. So then the victim went, I don't know, they had some kind of confrontation. It wasn't exactly clear what happened in that moment. But the guy who stole the steak and ate it grabbed a knife off the counter and swung and stabbed my victim in the ribs. My victim ended up having a punctured lung in this situation. The guy who had a punctured lung didn't realize he had a punctured lung, but he did realize he had just been stabbed by his roommate. He began to beat the ever-living shit out of his roommate. His buddies came downstairs and asked him what's going on, and he said, this guy just tried to stab me. So then his roommates started beating the ever-living shit out of this guy. They probably beat on him for 10 minutes. They picked him up, they drug him outside, and they threw him on the sidewalk. They then called 911 and said, hey, I got stabbed. The suspect is outside laying on the sidewalk. We respond, we thought that the guy on the sidewalk was the victim, the guy that was the most injured. And then we start talking to everybody and we get this guy. He shows us that he's been stabbed. The medics look at him. They take him to the hospital. They end up taking both people to the hospital. But the person that got charged in that case was the guy that got literally the shit kicked out of him and was laying in a pool of his own blood on the sidewalk because his roommates beat the crap out of him. This is the guy that stole a steak and then stabbed the rightful owner of that steak. And he was beat within an inch of his life. The guys that did the beating were not charged in that case. I don't know if I can make an example that's any more clear. So then he says, if we pay you more, you won't violate people's rights. Hey, genius. It's not about paying people more to make them do their job better. It's about offering a better pay so that you encourage a better group of people to take that job. Do you understand? Like, this is the problem in our society. It's not that the police are doing the wrong thing. It's that people are mislabeling what it is that the police are doing and what people are saying. You're not being honest about my words. We can't have a conversation if you're going to lie about what it is that I said, or if you're just not smart enough to understand what I said. These are signs that these are people that should not be voting, but they do. And that's one of the biggest problems with our country. So then it says, this is why people have lost respect for the police. No, it's because you don't understand. It's because you're not smart enough to comprehend. That's why you don't understand. Then it says, and I'm a Republican, by the way. Congratulations. I don't understand what that has to do with anything. It does not belong in this conversation, nor should it ever. So congratulations, alien prepper. You now have an answer to your question. Let's see. You are clearly biased because you're a cop. However, you're a human, like you said, but being a cop carries a higher standard. You are not supposed to lose your cool regardless. A cop's job is not supposed to be easy, and not everyone should be a cop. Police brutality is unnecessary, and the public does not feel safe being around cops. There are more police auditors today than there were 5 years ago. That's just a fact. The video you are talking about was filmed because the public does not trust cops, which is unfortunate. Oh, yeah. This guy starts talking about auditors, which those are frauditors. Those people are frauds. They're not auditing anything. Those people are morons. I've talked about this before. The people that filmed this were not frauditors. They were just regular people that saw something and they chose to film it. I don't buy into this idea that the majority of people don't trust the police, don't feel safe around the police. I am around people all day long. I drive up and down city streets all day long. I have people, I cannot get gas without a bunch of people walking up and trying to talk to me. No, that's it. Let's see. Oh, and then there's just people that don't make sense. Let's see. This guy, not me, something. They went outside of policy to smash a man's skull into the pavement for no reason other than compliance. You're a nice guy, but no bullshit. How is that anything other than attempted murder? That's a question that I saw that I wanted to specifically address. Attempted murder. In order to say that someone is attempting to murder somebody, you have to prove that their intent was to kill that person. That is, then you're not, no, you can't prove that in this case. This is one of those things too that I would like to paint in the brush of what happens in the real world. Have I ever seen anybody charged with attempted murder? Not on any of the cases that I've worked. And I'll tell you what, I've been on hundreds upon hundreds of shooting scenes. No. Maybe it's something that the general public doesn't understand. The general public thinks that if you shoot at somebody, you're attempting to kill that person. And I understand the logic behind that, but that's not the way the courts see it. I'll even go so far. Well, there's a reason that if you shoot somebody and that person is shot in the leg, shot in the arm, shot in the torso even, what the crime that you're charged with is felonious assault in the state of Ohio. It's cause or attempt to cause serious physical harm to another. And then there's definitions of what serious physical harm is. Serious physical harm is usually defined as something that causes substantial risk to the life of that individual, or something that will cause a permanent disfigurement. That is a felonious assault. In order to say that they're attempting to murder somebody, you have to prove that their intent was to murder that person. So if a person is laying on the ground unconscious, you walk up and put the gun to their head and pull the trigger, you have a good case for an attempted murder. I'm not going to go into all of the different examples, but you can understand the picture that I'm painting here. I want to take that a step further. If you're riding in a car and somebody shoots at your car, that person is not necessarily charged with felonious assault either, even if your car is hit. A lot of times they're charged with felony vandalism. There's also cases I've dealt with where you might say that John over there has a firearm and John shot at you because he was mad at you and he was trying to kill you. If you're not hit and nothing very near to you is hit, the person that fired that firearm, they're often charged with a misdemeanor discharge of a firearm in city limits. They're not charged with attempted murder. You know, people talk about this disconnect and this like mistrust for police and all this other stuff. It's been my experience that the reason that those things happen is because people just don't understand how the real world works. You're not going to get attempted murder for someone punching someone's head into the ground. Not in this kind of case. Let's see. Did he say anything else? When a sheriff does, the victim have to prove malice intent? If anyone else did this in self-defense, they would be accessory or liable to attempt murder. Why should I, a citizen, ever trust a man wearing a badge again, or to be in a free society? I already explained that in the one before, where no, a regular citizen can damn near kill somebody and not get charged with a crime in a lot of situations if they're responding to assault. That's about it. And I'm not going to read all these more. I'm starting to ramble on. This video is 16 minutes at this time, and I don't want to go over 20 minutes, but y'all are kind of getting the point. I do want to say that if you type in all caps, I'm not going to respect anything that you have to say. Just so you know, we're going to put that out there. The other thing that I wanted to explain to people that they don't seem to understand is my stance on if a police officer is having a bad day or they make a mistake and they use an excessive amount of force, why do I think that should mandate a suspension or some kind of administrative penalty rather than a criminal penalty and imprisonment, something like that? One of the reasons, like in this case, the guy was resisting arrest. The officers were authorized to use force in that case. They just used too much force, or they didn't stop applying force when it became apparent that they should have stopped using force, or at least that level of force. When it comes to a criminal prosecution, I'm assuming that what the officers are going to say was that they were not aware his hands were showing. You can see things from 50 feet away that you can't see when you're 2 feet away. I'm assuming that's what the officer's defense is going to be, that they had a guy who was resisting. His hand, at least one of his hands, almost the majority of the time was under his body. The other hand was up. They all had different angles. They could all hear different guys saying things. I have been in situations not where I saw excessive force to this level, but where I heard officers yelling and screaming, giving commands to somebody that we were on the ground fighting with. And I was able to like get this person's hand up and, you know, we're doing this, that, and the other. And the one officer is still yelling at the guy to do a certain thing. And I'm trying to tell the officer, hey, I've got his hand. Give me a cuff. And in the heat of the moment with all the yelling and screaming and the adrenaline and everything that's going on, it takes an additional couple of moments for all the officers to understand what's really going on. This is part of the human psyche. These things are going to happen as long as we still have humans on the job. So I don't know. That's kind of my take on that. But I also want to remind everybody that there are, I'm trying to think. Well, I did want to, no, I'm not going to go there. Because I'm putting a video up on the body camera channel up in a couple of days. Oh, somebody did ask, I don't understand any circumstance where you might bounce a guy's head off the pavement like that. My response to that was, if this guy has a history of being armed and you believe he is armed now and he is concealing one of his hands under his body and you believe that he's trying to get a gun out of his waistband, you might use a tremendous level of force in that situation. That's a situation where I would say it warrants bouncing his head off the pavement. You can start dropping elbows on his head in that situation. You would use an incredible amount of force on a person who you think has a handgun right here and you can't get their arm out, and that there's a decent chance that when that hand does come free, it's going to have a pistol in it, and that pistol is going to be used to try to murder you. If you believe you're in one of those situations, there are no rules in that situation. And it's possible that the officers felt that they were in one of those situations. And I think it's this Monday. I don't know if this video is going to come out before or after, but there's a video that's going to be on my body camera channel where a couple of they were actually in a cruiser, but they stopped this guy that was on a bicycle. They began fighting with him, and he reaches into his pocket with his hand and pulls a pistol out. The officers are trying to get the pistol out of his hand. He brings it in, and for a little bit has it under his body, and he won't let go. That was a situation where they had two officers on top of this guy, and they start dropping bombs. They punch him in the face multiple times, bouncing his head off the pavement. 100% justified, and it was 100% the right thing to do in that situation. So from there, I want to transition on to, why don't we straight up just charge every single police officer that's using excessive force? Unfortunately, I think we're entering into a world where that is becoming more of a thing, and I don't think it's the right thing, because you're going to have situations where an officer should escalate their level of force based on the behaviors of the suspect. They're not going to, because they're going to be more afraid of being criminally charged than they are going to be of that suspect, and they're going to get hurt, or their fellow officers are going to get hurt and killed. I just went to defensive tactics training the other day, and the majority of officers who have been shot in the line of duty were shot by a suspect who was less than 4 feet away from them. That means most of the time when you're in close and you're fighting with somebody, that's when they pull a gun and shoot an officer. I think it was a little bit over 50% of the time. So these things are unpredictable events. Officers have to use force in a large number of situations to keep themselves safe and to safely effect an arrest. And if an officer is more worried about being criminally charged for having somebody perceive him of using excessive force, he might, one, not use the appropriate amount of force and get himself or another officer hurt, or two, he might see a suspect and think, you know what, that suspect is a violent suspect. This could turn into a violent encounter. I don't want to go to prison or jail or lose my job. Nobody's going to know if I just turn a blind eye and I let him walk by. So if every police officer gets criminally charged because the public thinks he used excessive force in a situation, you're going to create an environment where even fewer police officers are going to be willing to do their job. And that is something that we seriously need to consider. So those are going to be my thoughts for today. Thank you for watching. I'll talk to you soon.